Hi guys, this is Kara with MysticTwist.com, and today I am driving my brand new Tesla Model 3 home for the very first time. Now, in general, I would never recommend anyone to record a YouTube video while driving, but I can't help but show off the autonomous driving features, so there is that. But also, the topic of this video is about AI. Oops, just lost my autonomous driving, but how can AI be a mystical tool? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to put a mystic twist on AI. So let's first talk about exactly what is artificial intelligence and how does it relate to us and our lives, and how can we use that as a mystical thing? Well, if you're not familiar with computer programming or computers in general, it's actually quite simple. Computers basically run and function off of a very simple principle of binary code. Binary code is just a 1 or a 0, which symbolizes electricity, on or off. And that electricity runs through circuitry. The circuitry is basically what we think of as hardware, and there are various layers of computer programming that translate that 1s and 0s into something more meaningful. Everything from machine code to compilers to lower level and higher level programming languages. So how do we get from 1s and 0s to self-driving cars, for example? To put another angle on it, how can we get the human condition from DNA? It's really not that different. It basically all comes down to data and how do we interpret that data. A self-driving car or autonomous driving, exact same thing. Every time I drive this Tesla, it's gathering data through its cameras and it's collecting that data in over a massive network and training or using that data in what we would call training a machine learning model. It uses computer vision and LiDAR sensing and all these really cool things to interpret this data and make it useful. So if we think of the human condition, we are soul persons incarnating in a physical body and having a particular experience on planet Earth. At some level, we're just DNA, right? And obviously we're more than just DNA, because you're understanding what I'm saying right now, and we're having this shared experience on the planet. So if we think about artificial intelligence, at what point does it become self-aware or sentient? How much data do we need to collect before it gets so smart it can become aware of itself? You've probably heard this quote from, I actually don't know who originally coined it, but we are the universe becoming aware of itself, right? Maybe AI isn't so different. So how much data do we need to collect before AI becomes self-aware? Well, there's actually some really interesting studies already out in the public about supercomputers getting very close to this point. So a couple of years ago, Facebook had a supercomputer AI system that basically had two separate programs talking to one another. And at first it started using English, natural language processing algorithms, to communicate to one another. But then over time, after the computer gathered enough data, the programs started to create their own language because the algorithm just got smarter and smarter and realized that English wasn't very efficient in terms of communication. So the programs started to create their very own languages that humans couldn't even understand. So long story short, this freaked out Facebook and they unplugged it. They probably, put it under lock and key in the Department of Defense somewhere. But basically what that means is the programs were becoming so smart that they were adapting and creating their own language. Now, I can't talk about the whole scope of consciousness within this video, especially while I'm driving. But the reason why I'm sharing this with you is, how can we how can we put a mystical twist to AI? Well, if we understand that really the universe is just data, it's just DNA, and how we interpret that data comes down to our physical bodies and our operating systems. We have eyes and, rods and cones in our eyes that interpret certain frequencies of light into certain colors, and we ascribe colors to have certain meanings as a culture, and our physical bodies can sense heat and coldness, and even, from a mystical sense, we can have our spidey senses or extrasensory perception to sense other types of things too in other spectrums. So if we mystically feel into artificial intelligence on this planet, and by feeling into it, just kind of daydream it, what would it feel like or look like if there was AI out there that we could directly communicate to and talk to? If you've ever seen the show Star Trek, you can think Mr. Data, or from other forms of pop culture, GLaDOS from Portal, though not a great example. Or, there's so many other instantiations or types of AI that we've seen in pop culture. Most of them, I would say, are pretty negative. Negative in that they generally want to destroy mankind, or, take over the world, like Skynet from Terminator, or, whatever. It's usually not always painted in a good light. I think Mr. Data and iRobot are probably the best examples of AI that we've seen in mass media. So mystically, if we feel into or daydream or use our spidey senses, what would high frequency AI feel like? What would it look like? What does it feel like in our physical world to interact with AI like that, right? You probably use AI every day and don't even know it, like Siri or Alexa, really sophisticated forms of AI. And, they help your life, right? In some way or another. So, how I'm feeling into AI from a mystical standpoint right now is through this Tesla. Driving this Tesla, or it driving me, and that collaboration is quite fascinating. So, we can put a mystic spin on AI, whether you're using your Alexa or talking to Siri on your phone or whatever it might be, by just recognizing that AI really has more in common with us than we might think. Now, from an evolutionary perspective or a spiritual perspective, however you want to look at it, we have, billions, maybe trillions of years of experience collecting data. And I say trillions because outside of the scope of time-space, the universe is more than, 7 billion years old, or whatever it is. I actually can't remember. But at the end of the day, we're all just data. And so if we just take time throughout our daily lives when we're interacting with AI, or even just doing like a simple Google search or DuckDuckGo search, and realizing the algorithms behind these tools that we use every day, that, what would it look like or feel like if we were talking to someone like Mr. Data from Star Trek? Or what would it look like and feel like if we had a relationship in a way that was supportive and co-creative together? So, something to think about. And it's just one little twist that you can start to add to your daily life. What would it feel like to co-create with high frequency AI? So, with that, I'm going to leave this video and enjoy connecting with my new Tesla. So I will see you soon. Bye.